about 30 or 40 minutes, we're going to open up the webinar to all of your questions, which is the advantage of being part of this evening's webinar live. You get the personal touch. Those of you who own other software in the Inspiration series by Dime, Perfect Embroidery Pro, My Block Piecer, My Quilt Embellisher, will see many similarities on the design page, so you'll be comfortable right away in your new Word Art and Stitches home. For newcomers, everything is laid out in a logical manner with built-in helpers, so you'll be at ease in no time. As you first enter Word Art and Stitches, you'll see the My Inspiration Today screen. The buttons on the bottom will give you exactly what they say they will, and the What's New will take you directly to support resources and updates. We're going to begin and create a new design. Here's our screen. It offers the tools we need, placed in specific sections on the screen for easy, logical access. We'll begin with the largest area, really the most important area. It's called the design page. It's where everything happens. We have the screen surrounded by multiple tools and buttons and icons. I'm not big on just telling you what each button will do. I'd rather show you. Therefore, we need something on the design page for us to play with the options offered by the different toolbars. There are a number of ways to bring a design to the page. Certainly we could click on File and go under Open and take ourselves to the files and folders where you might already have designs. We also can use some of the icons that are available to us on the toolbar. I'd like to start with stamps. If you're unsure which icon represents the tool you wish to use, simply rest your mouse on each and you will see a tooltip that pops up to tell you what that button represents. Here we have stamps, and stamps is one of the tools unique to Word Art and Stitches. We'll rest on it, click on it once, and we are brought into a screen where we have 57 different stamps representing cities, countries, and special mail notations. We're going to play with New York this evening, and as you look here in alphabetical order, you see that we really have 5 different stamps that we could choose for New York. We'll go ahead and play with the first one. We can click it once and come down and click on OK, or a shortcut is to double-click on the stamp that you wish. Now we have something on screen, and we can familiarize ourselves with the things that we can do with this. Let's first take a look up at the top of the screen. Move that out of the way here, and we see the information that appears for us at the top. You see the size, both the width and the height, and this is just about 1.5 inches. We have one color in this New York stamp, and the number of stitches is 2288. If you were stitching out at 450 stitches per minute, that would take about 5 minutes to do this. Back on the design page, we see that this New York stamp is selected, and we know that it is because it has a black box around it, and it also has these black squares that are called handles. If we rest on a handle, you'll see a 2-headed arrow appear. It has a different direction, and this is going to help us size. We actually have 2 options that we could use to size, and this first one, we're just going to use the click and drag. You'll place your mouse on one of those handles. Since I want to keep the stamp proportionate, height and width, I'm going to drag with one of the corners, and I simply click, keeping my mouse down, and drag up a bit. When I do that, let's take a look back up at the top of the screen with the information. Remember, that was 2288, and we see now that we have 2977. This happens because the software will automatically recalculate the stitches, adding or removing them as necessary for the new size. And a general rule to follow is to stay within a 20% up or 20% down from the original size. A second way to size, and it's more accurate, is to come over here to the property box. We see the properties on the title bar. You notice it also has its own toolbar for the properties. If we rest on any of them, we see those tooltips come back up. And the one that we want is this last one. Now, there's no pressure here. There's no reason that you should memorize these. You always have those tooltips to refresh you where something is located. And with anything, the more you use it, the more comfortable you'll be. We'll go ahead and click on Transform. When we do that, we see the sizes of that stamp, the increased size, and we see a box right here checked that Maintain Aspect Ratio. This is going to keep everything proportional, meaning if I change one measurement, it'll automatically change another to keep the design in proportion. We're going to bring the size down this time to 1.25. And the other thing that we need to do anytime we're in the properties box, when you make a change to a property, you need to apply it. And the apply button will always be down in the lower right of the properties. You can't see mine right now because my laptop screen is much wider than it is tall. So I always need to grab that blue bar right there, click and drag down just a little bit, and there I see the apply button. I'll go ahead and click on that, and we see that New York stamp has sized down, and it's now the 1.25. Something else that I can do with this stamp is to change the color. We'll take a look down here at the thread bar. This is your thread chart bar down here, and normally the first 8 colors come in by default, and then anything after 8 will be the colors that are going to be in anything you bring to the screen. In this case, it looks like it's this charcoal gray. Whenever you want to change the color, all you need to do is come down here and right-click on the color of choice. You can see our stamp is now blue. That looks nice. And we think, what do we want to do if we'd like to add another portion to this design? Well, let's go back to stamps. So I'll come back up here to my icon, click on that again, and this time I know that I'm after these fun wavy lines. I'll go ahead and double click, and it comes onto the screen. It overlaps our New York stamp because whenever you bring in a design onto the screen, it will come in centered. It's not a problem at all. Please notice that the wavy lines are selected. And then too, notice when my mouse is to the side, it is an arrow, but if I bring it over onto the wavy lines, it turns to a hand, an arrow, and a hand. Whenever I have the hand, that means I can click and drag and reposition that portion of the design. While it's selected, I'm going to go down and change the color to this fuchsia color, sort of like a red. Another button that I like a lot is right over here on the left side, this left toolbar, and it's called the 3D button. When I click it, it turns it on, and what it offers me is a more realistic view of the threads as they will stitch out. If I click it again, then we actually see the stitching. I click it again, and I see the threads. This is what's known as a toggle switch. It stays on until you go and click it again. On, off, very much like a light switch on the wall. We also have the zoom button that will come in handy for you as well. A couple different ways that we can use this. First of all, it is a magnifying glass. I'll go ahead and click it, and when I bring my mouse over to the screen, you'll see the mouse has turned into a magnifying glass. This too is a toggle. I could click there to turn it off, click there to turn it back on, and let's say we wanted a little closer look to Lady Liberty. We'll bring our magnifying glass right on to Lady Liberty and click once, and that will bring us up. You can see up here we're in over 600% in our zoom. Also, I can click again if I really needed to see those stitches up close. I can also right-click on my mouse with the zoom still selected, and it brings me back out to the screen. A shortcut that comes in very handy if I want to bring everything that's on my design page in one single view, I can come to the zoom and do a double click on that, and I now see everything there all at one time. This might be a little too close still, so if I come up to the zoom window, you notice it has a drop-down arrow, and I can click on that and choose any percentage that I might want. I'm going to go ahead and back it out to a 200%, so it's not quite so large. Now, with this magnifier, I certainly could go turn it off, but another tool, in fact, the most important tool really, is your select tool. Whenever you're in something that you are finished with, or if you've clicked on something and now you don't know how to get out of it, you simply come over here and click back on the select tool. Think of that as your home base. It sort of clears everything and puts you back to square one, and you're ready to go do whatever it is that you would like to do. So the select button is very important to us. Does this look like the beginning of a project? We can add a few more things and create a personalized luggage tag. And here's where WordArt and Stitches really shines. The number of options it gives us to create text. They start right here on the toolbar, and if we rest on them, we have the ability to add text. We have over 140 digitized keyboard fonts to choose from. We can choose from 12 different monogram fonts. We have 10 microtext fonts. Now, what a microtext font is, if that's new to you, it will give us digitized lettering that is as small as 3 millimeter to 6 millimeter. And this is perfect for doing things like shirt cuffs or quilt labels. If you have to do multiple lines of stitching for words, a poem or a recipe, something like that, it's perfect for that. There are some rules when you use the microtext, though. You do want to use a 60 weight or less thread and a size 9 needle for those very small fonts. We also have puffy text, 13 fonts to choose from. Applique, we have 10 of those. And true type, you'll have as many of those under true type as are on your own computer. And then we have a calligraphy group that is just beautiful. We have 13 of those fonts to choose from. So lots and lots of choices here. We're going to go back though and choose the text. Having clicked on that, bringing my mouse down to the white portion of my design page, you see the mouse look different. I do have the letter A hooked to my arrow. I'm going to click on the screen. Couple things happen here. You see the letter A show up on the screen. That's because the letter A is the default. We have to have some kind of text appear on the screen when we click so that you know that you're in it. So it makes very logical sense for it to be the first letter of the alphabet. And then I'm going to bring your attention over back to the property box. And notice this time the properties are all about the text. You see that letter A, and you also see the font that was last used. So Bauhaus happens to be the last one that I was playing with, so that will be the one that appears. We're going to add a name to our luggage tag, and I'm going to use my last name, Artines. Put it in all caps. It was nice that that letter A was already there for me. And I could come over here to Bauhaus, and you see that we have a drop-down arrow. Remember that there's 140 of these fonts to choose from. I can go down into the alphabetic list and see many, many, many of those, and click on something that might sound fun. Tango. If I want to see what that looks like, I can apply. And that's way too big and a little too ornate for what I want on my luggage tag. Bring that down so you can see it. Another option that you have, instead of just clicking on this drop down, is to actually click right on that white window. And this is my favorite. It brings us into the catalog of those fonts. And here, because we are visual people, we sew, we quilt, we embroider, we like to see things and feel them with our hands. So here, this gives us the opportunity to see what each of those fonts is going to look like before we apply it to our word. I'm going to come back up here to, I do really like the Bauhaus, so I'm going to click on that, and I can click on OK. It will apply it both to my window in Properties as well as to my name. The next thing I want to do is up here in height. I'm going to select that and turn that back into a 1/2 inch in height. Remember, we always need to apply when we change a property. And the other thing, you see these diamonds and triangles and circles and squares. In another webinar, we'll learn all about the specifics about editing your text with all of those colored triangles and diamonds, etc. So for now, we're going to go back up and get our select key. When we click on that, notice the difference here. We go back to just having the word selected just as we had the wavy lines and the New York stamp. The first thing I want to do is to change the color so that I have 3 different color groups to work with. I'm going to come down here and right-click on my orange, and that changes the color of my name. The other thing we're going to do, you know that we've done that with our New York. I'll get that 2-headed arrow and size up in a little bit to size my name and pick that up and drop it where I think it might go. I'm going to size that a little smaller also so that it fits nicely under our area. I can also use my arrows on my bar over here so that it's a little bit more centered into the screen. We have some tools that we can use, very easy to use, that will help us with positioning. You have the ability to turn on your grid, and this button appears under our 3D. We'll click that and you see both vertical and horizontal dashed lines that come up behind the screen. By default, they are set 1/2 inch apart, and we can use those lines for whatever reason to help us with alignment. If I wanted to align the A and the beginning of my wavy lines, I could do that. To turn grid off, you simply click it. It is a toggle switch. Some people like to have that grid on all the time. I don't. I prefer to pull it up when I need it and then take it away. I like just a plain background when I'm creating things, but that's the beauty of the software. You can do it your way. We also have the ability to use 1 or 2 lines at a time, and these are called guidelines. Please notice that you have a top ruler and you have a ruler at the side. On either one of those, either the vertical or the horizontal, I can rest my mouse within the ruler and I'm clicking within that area and dragging down, and I can drag down 1 line at a time. I certainly could go get another if I needed to and place that wherever it needs to be. I also can click and drag over a vertical line and place that where I might want it. So in this case, if I have rested my line right here, right across from this straight line under New York, maybe then I would like to align my name on that same line across from New York. And maybe I would like to align my name at the end of the wavy lines instead of at the beginning. So those guidelines come in very handy. I use them all the time. When I'm finished with them, all I have to do is come over to the ruler and right-click in the ruler and come down and say Remove Guidelines, and they are gone. But they're there for me to go get whenever I would need them. Are you a metric person? I know I should be, but I'm an old dog, and I'd rather have my new tricks be with all of the fun inspiration software from Dime. But if you are metric-based, all we need to do is right-click on that ruler again, see your metric choice right there. We'll go ahead and choose that, and you'll see all over the screen has changed to metric. Both of the rulers. You'll also notice your metric measurement up here in our information bar. I have the name selected, so the properties for text are there, and you'll see that those also are metric. It's very easy to change back and forth. I do go back and forth between the two at different times, so I like this easy feature. I'm going to go back, though, and put it back to inches, so I'll click on that, and once again, all of those measurements are showing in inches. Some other alignment tools that are very easy for you to use as well. If I want my name centered under the wavy bars, I already have the name selected. I'm going to hold down the Control key on my keyboard and select the wavy lines. I now have both of them selected, and I'm going to come up here to the alignment tool that is actually the horizontal center align. And you see that black line is showing me that these things will be centered. All I need to do is click on that, and you may have noticed that my last name then is centered under those wavy lines. I also can select multiples. I'll do the wavy lines this time in the New York stamp. And this time I could ask it to do a vertical center align and see that it brought my wavy lines down to my stamp. It did not move my stamp up. Whenever you do something that you prefer not, or you don't think you like that decision, all we need to do is come back up here to undo, and we click on undo, and undo will take us back as often as we'd like to go back. We can, and then the blue arrow right next to it is a redo, and that will move you forward in the things that you have done. So never do we have to worry about trying something to see what it might look like. All right, let's move forward to finish this project. I know that I want to keep it relatively small in my smallest hoop, so I'm going to come over here. The very last button on the left toolbar is the hoops. When I click on that, I see a number of hoops already installed with the software for all of the different kinds of machines that are out there. I happen to have Baby Lock machines, which is at the top. You also have the ability to create your own. You can see that I've added that one at the very top, the Destiny Larger. I used the new button and created my own with my own name that I wanted and putting in the proper size and so forth, but the others are listed. I'll go ahead and click on the 100 by 100. Now, these are metric measurements because your hoops come in those metric measurements. But having clicked on that, because I have inches selected, you'll see the inches over here. Go ahead and OK that. And what I've done is to bring a visual aid onto the screen, and that's really all it is. It's not a barrier. I could actually click on that New York stamp and drop it right on that line. This is not going to stop me from moving things outside the hoop. It really is just a visual to help me keep my designs within that area. We are given many free designs in WordArt and Stitches. These two buttons here will be something that you want to visit. The text designs, there are over 800 designs that come in there for you to use. And then with our monogram designs, this happens to be where I'd like to go, so we'll go ahead and click on that. And these monogram designs were given to us to enhance our monograms with frames. You can make unique monograms specific to the personality of those people that are receiving your gifts. For us this evening, we're going to be using this one, the 43606. I'll double click and it comes onto the screen. The size fits within our hoop, but I am going to come over here to the Properties, Transform, and size that down just a bit to a 3 3/4, and go ahead and apply that, and that brings it in just a little bit. That makes a nice frame for our luggage tag. It is missing something though. It's actually missing a hole for us to attach this tag to our luggage. No worries. What is a hole but a capital O? So we're going to go back up to our text, click right here in this white area. Remember, it comes in as an A. I'm going to type in the capital O and apply. And again, I like the look of this Bauhaus, so I'm going to leave it. I'll come up here and get my select key. And this time when I size, because I don't have to have an absolute measurement, I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to size it by the handle, but I'd like to draw your attention down here to the status bar, right down here. Watch this gray area as I size. The moment I click on that diagonal, do you see that it's giving me the width and the height of that O? And I'm going to just drag it down. And again, that is just a reference for me down there, but it's about a 1/2 inch now. Maybe I'll just go a little smaller. And again, if I don't have to be absolutely precise, I can size and sort of keep an eye out on my sizing right down on that status bar. I'm going to click and drag it into position and then play for just a minute by clicking and dragging, positioning those other parts of this luggage tag wherever I think it looks nice, and I think that's a nice placement there for all three of them. The other thing I am going to do is to change the color on this hole, so I'll go ahead and right-click on that number 9 to make it a little gray. And at this point, this is our luggage tag. It's kind of fun with the stamps and to personalize it. Before we actually save this design, I want to draw your attention over here to the bottom right in our sequence view. This area on your screen is going to be very important for you to get comfortable with because it allows us to do many, many different things. But in this first intro lesson, I just want to introduce you to the sequence. What is happening here is it's showing us the stitch out order. It's first going to stitch the blue New York stamp, then the red wavy lines, then my name, then the frame, and finally the hole for our tag. Sometimes when you are creating, you actually do create things in the order that you want them stitched out, but sometimes not, or you change your mind, or you add something after the fact. So you might need to do a little rearranging. In this case, we can click on the O, and if I want that to stitch before my frame, I can select it, click, and I'm going to drag it and drop it on the orange, which means it's going to be deposited there right after the orange. So now the hole will stitch out with before the frame will. The other option that you have with this item selected, I can come up here and ask it to move it to the front, and it puts it in this position right here, so it will stitch out last. Something else to take a look at perhaps when you're doing your designs is this slow redraw. It is a simulation of the embroidery, and you can watch it stitch out. There's a couple different ways you can watch it stitch out. The easiest is to come up here and just click on the simulate, and you can see it start to stitch out. It's going to show you exactly how it's going to stitch. You can see the order. You can see if it has underlay, any of that kind of thing. We can also speed it up by clicking and dragging that bar all the way over, and it's faster. And certainly you could come right up to the bar itself and click on that bar and move it over as fast as you need to if you're just watching all of this stitch out to see the order. So that's a very handy tool and one that you'll use quite often. I'll go ahead and grab my select tool because at this point we are ready to save our design. We're going to come up here and click on File, come down to Save As. The first thing that's important is to know where it's going. You are saving it, what folder, and you need to know where that folder is. This is the folder that I have for tonight's webinar, so this is where I want this design saved. We then come to the file name. It would be logical if I named it Luggage Tag. And then we look at the Save As type. The default is for it to save as an Inspiration Series, the C2S format. This is the native format of all of the Inspiration software, and it is very important that you save your design in a C2S because this really is a working file. That means any time in the future you can open this file again and do all kinds of editing, whatever you'd like to do, and you would be allowed to access all of the parts and the properties of that design. Very important that we save it. We'll go ahead and click to do so. And then we need to go right back into another file, Save As, and this time the folder is still correct. I'm going to use that same name, but I do need to save it in the format for my specific embroidery machine. As I said, I own Baby Lock machines, so I'll go ahead and click in the PEZ format. I see that format right there, and I go ahead and save it, and that would be the format that I would then take to put it on my flash drive and then take it to my embroidery machine and work with that. what I have done for you so that if you are inspired to do this cute little luggage tag, you see it's very fun and there's no pressure. It can look as whatever you'd like it to look. But I did go ahead and give you some visuals on how you might finish out this project. You would want to hoop tearaway stabilizer in your 4x4 hoop and then lay a piece of what I call substantial fabric. And by that I mean fabric that has a little bit of weight. You'll see that I've used a medium weight vinyl, and we don't want it to fray because this is a raw edge. This was not a true applique. And we simply lay that vinyl over your hoop. We're going to stitch out the first three colors, the stamp, the wavy lines, and your name. And then we're going to float a piece of felt under the hoop. And the reason we're going to do this is because as a luggage tag, you're going to see both sides of that tag. And we'd like the back side to be nice looking. So by floating a piece of felt under the hoop, we're going to cover up any of those stitches and knots and so forth. What I've done here in this picture, I've lifted up the vinyl so that you can see how that felt is floated under the hoop. You certainly would not lift this up. You would be slightly raising the hoop so you can float that felt under it. I also left the felt right here so you could see the difference, but you really would want to float that felt all the way over to the edge of the hoop so that this covered your stitch area. Once the felt is under the hoop, you would then stitch out the frame and the O. When finished, you'd remove from your hoop, remove the stabilizer, use some sharp scissors to cut out the hole, and then you would trim more than an eighth, but maybe less than a quarter away from the frame. And the reason I have you do that is, as you see it here, by leaving a bit of fabric, in this case the vinyl, you actually allow the frame to be front and center and to appreciate the embroidery of that frame. Also, you don't want to run the risk of doing it too close and then snipping any of those stitches. You'll see that once we open up that hole, that letter O made a great hole for some cord or a luggage bungee cord if you have that. And then if you would like to do this for maybe your child or grandchild for their lunchbox or book bag, you can do it with a smaller cord. So yes, you can, and this is very fun to do and easy to use as well. Now, when we talked about saving, and I talked about saving it in the proper folder, if you need a bit more information about files and folders, be sure to visit the Inspiration by Dime YouTube channel. Dory and her team have created a wonderful channel here that has all the goodies from Dime, lots and lots of good information with videos, the webinars are there, the snippets that Eileen does, all of that is in one easy place for you to use. You can, this happens to be one of the videos that I've done. I did 3 for very basic users. This one is strictly on files and folders, and if you've never sat with anybody to help you start your embroidery files and organization and so forth, this is a pretty good video for you to start with. And even if you've been doing it for a while, you might pick up some tips and tricks that I use for all the years that I've done many, many files. The other thing to note is you have access to these videos right in the software. Here's a little picture from the WordArt screen, and this film strip is right on the toolbar and will allow you to access those videos. If we go back into WordArt, you see it right there, and if we were to click on that, that's going to take us to the Dime screen where you can go directly into the videos for all of the different software. So it's very easy for you to use. In fact, if you have the other programs in the Inspiration Software series, you'll want to mark that page as a favorite. So talk about support, we do have you covered. And speaking of support, Dory, do we have any questions? Actually, I should ask you, what questions do we have? I bet we do have some.
We do, and one of the questions, of course, is the design that you did, is that going to be available later?
It can be, but it is also something, I tried to pick something easy for everybody to follow along in the webinar, that they could actually create it themselves in their word art. But certainly we could have this available. I could send you the file and you could have that ready for them.
Okay.
Now, I
Yeah,
tell you what though, I'll send it to you without my name. How's that?
that sounds like a good deal. Okay. Um, if you have this software, are you going to be doing other webinars on this that are going to have more challenging ideas and projects?
Yes. Yes, we are. The next one, as I said, we are deviating from our normal once a month. So we will be having a second webinar for word art the last Tuesday of this month. So you're getting 2 of them in September, the 29th. And that one I will start the bubble art, because that really is what is so very exciting about word art and so unique, is the ability to create your bubble text in the shapes that are given to you, in the shapes that you want, and putting in your personalized text and so forth. So yes, indeed, we are starting with all of that fun on September. And then we will have another in October where we get a little bit more intricate with the bubble text on how to create your own shapes and saving and so forth, that kind of thing, with the decor as well. So absolutely.
Super. And the majority of these projects are done with what size needle?
Um, to me, it depends on, you're going to have to sort of judge. Like for my vinyl, I made sure that I used a sharp needle. I did use an 11, but if you are doing some of your word art with the micro fonts in them, then perhaps a size 10 needle, something a smaller needle. And we will talk about that when we this next one in September, where we actually do that word art, the bubble text, so you can understand what I mean by microtext. You'll see it, it comes up right on the screen.
Super. And we do notice that you do have some artwork tools in here so that we can do some amount of artwork, and we will talk about that later as well.
Yes, we absolutely do. We have this artwork tool right here where we have the ability to create these shapes.
Super. Thank you so very much. And again, if anybody's interested in this software, we do have dealers that are already set up with the Inspired software.
And the other thing I would encourage, if those of you who have not yet purchased the software, tonight was an introductory. We did not go over all of the really cool things that this software can do. So if you are still thinking about it, I would strongly encourage you to visit us again September 29th on that Tuesday, because there we really start to get into the fun parts of the software with the bubble art and really what is unique to this software. So I would very much welcome all people, those of you that have the software and those of you that might still be thinking about purchasing it.
Super. Thank you very much, Katherine.
You're welcome, Dory. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.